So I'm going to go ahead and give you a moment just to explain how I got into the Kora. I literally stumbled across the Kora 12 years ago, and that was because my dad invited me to a folk festival in my hometown of Olympia, Washington, which is about an hour south of Seattle. I live in Asheville, North Carolina now. And that night, there was an American Kora player like myself, born and raised in Chicago, who lived in Seattle for about 10 years. His name's Kane Mathis, and he was performing as a trio that night, Kora and djembe, which is a hand drum that sits on a wooden frame. It's about this tall off the ground, and they usually have cowskin heads just like the Kora have over the calabash. And there was a bass guitarist as well. And I just absolutely fell in love with the instrument that night. And I want to kind of tie into some of the conversation earlier, because walking in and seeing a white person play this instrument myself and falling in love with it, I even had the hesitancy to want to play. I was a bit confused at the fact that there was a white person playing. And so just out of curiosity, I went up and talked to him after the show, and I was like, is this legit? Is this okay? And he basically said, yeah, I've been over to West Africa 5 times now and studied with a family. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Didn't they have any resistance to having a white person coming over and studying their culture? And he was like, no, they didn't have any reservations whatsoever. All it took from Kane, who became my American teacher as a result of that evening, all it took from me was a phone call, kind of expressing my interests and telling him what I wanted to do with the instrument over here, and that basically opened up the door for me to come over. And that was definitely the case with me as well. So the way it worked out is that after about 1.5 years studying with Kane, he put me in touch with the 2 teachers, Morba and Malamini, that he had been over to study with many times before I did. And I basically just followed in his footsteps for the first trip. I flew into Banjul International Airport, which is the capital of Gambia. Morba picked me up in a yellow taxi and drove me back to Brikama, which is the city that he lived in at the time, back to the family compound. The compound is basically where a whole entire extended family of people would live. So you would have like the head of the households and his wife, sometimes multiple wives, all their kids and all their grandchildren as well. And usually each immediate family of a husband, wife, and kids, like 2, 3, or sometimes 4 kids, maybe even more, would have like 2 or 3 rooms that were clustered together, and 1 or 2 of those rooms would be covered. In the compound where I was, of these segmented wings, the first one that you would walk into would have like a couch and maybe a CD player. Some people had a TV. The next one beyond that was where you would sleep, and sometimes they would have like the mom, the dad, and 1 or 2 of the kids would sleep together on the same bed. And then the back room was outdoor, so it wasn't covered by a roof, and there was a hole in the ground, and that's where you would shower. So to do that, you went over to the tap. Not all of the compounds in the area had a tap, so the people who did have one would willingly share with the others. So you'd have to take a 2 or 3 gallon bucket over the tap and load it up and walk it over and take it to the back room and take a cup and just start cupping it in and showering yourself that way. Some people would wash their clothes back there by hand, and then they would hang a line in the back to hang it to dry. So once I got to Gambia for the first time, I was just having a bit of culture shock, and Morba just felt like had my back in just about every imaginable way possible. Not only did Morba and Malamini take 4 to 8 hours a day to work with me on the Kora, they took care of me like I was one of their own, like their son or their brother. They fed me, and in the way that they invited me in with the family as they ate, and they just had my back in every imaginable way, and I really owe a great deal to them for being able to share all of this with you, so thanks.